6 weeks, and then... Don't think about Sally. Never think of that hen and her horrible name again. And the water stain over the dining room table in the shape of a shadowy face, although they could never find anywhere that water would have seeped through their skin-tight, warranty-guaranteed roof. The roof company men had stood around in their filthy boots and stared up at it, refusing to take any blame. Also, without explanation, the wallpaper had curled away in the bathroom. Just that one edge. You could never do anything to keep it in place. They'd tried every adhesive on the market, but the daisy wallpaper would stick fast for exactly 3 days and nights before it peeled away again. Holly needed to write down these things, this evidence. The cat and Rose, the bump on her husband's hand, the hens, the water stain, the wallpaper, along with the clue provided to her by her dream. Something had followed them home from Russia. How long had it been since she'd woken up needing to write? God, how Holly used to need to write. Now she needed to write again. What time was it? She was still in bed, or in bed again. Had she already risen, looked in on her daughter, or had that been a dream? She'd come back to bed and slipped again into sleep? Perhaps. Now she didn't need to open her eyes to know that it was morning, that it was snowing. Was there a pen in this room? If she found a pen before Eric and Tatiana woke up, would she be able to actually sit down and write? That broken habit, that abandoned necessity. Holly thought she could. She would be able to write. She could feel it, the bitter ache of it. There was some awful pressure on her lungs. There was, she felt, something stoppered up in her torso. She imagined vomiting it out of herself, like vomiting up a swan, something with a long, tangled throat nestled inside her own throat, choking on its feathers and all its bony quills. How relieved she would feel afterward, lying on the bedroom floor beside the swan she'd vomited out of herself into the world. Outside, the wind sounded like a nerve being yanked through the tree. It was Christmas morning, but late. It must be nearly 9 o'clock. They never slept this late on Christmas morning. Far too much rum and eggnog last night. Was Tatty still asleep in her bed? Her pale arm, pale coverlet, pale pillow with a splash of dark hair, still. Holly had looked in on her. She remembered this, but it had been hours ago, hadn't it? Surely Tatty would be up by now, ready to open presents. Where was she? Why hadn't she come into the room to wake them up? Because she was 15, of course. She was probably also still asleep. There would never again be a Christmas morning crack of dawn Tatty coming in to slap their faces lightly with her damp, new, tiny hands. Instead, they'd all overslept on Christmas morning, and Holly had woken up with this little horror in her mind that something had followed them home from Russia. Something evil? Well, perhaps not evil, but it had sapped them. It continued to sap them. "Oh, that's motherhood," Twee would say. "You're just talking about motherhood. Children, they're energy vampires." But don't forget the cat, the wallpaper, and Rose. Even when she was semi-lucid, even when the words were familiar English words, Aunt Rose had seemed to Holly to be reciting lines from the fire sermon. "On Margate sands, I can connect nothing with nothing, the broken fingernails of dirty hands, my people, humble people, who expect nothing, la, la." And there had also been their CDs, hadn't there? All their favorites had been scratched, as if overnight, although surely it had been over a long period of time. Every one of their favorites had been ruined, and they'd never even bothered to replace them. They'd just left them there on a shelf, like their books, which they never took down to read now, or even to blow the dust off. And speaking of the dust, my God, it was everywhere. It was Holly's exhaustion. It was floating and impossible, still bearing cat fur in it after all these years without the cat, as well as strands of Tatiana's long black hair. When Holly complained about the dust, Eric claimed he didn't see it, that he had no idea what she was talking about, but that if it bothered her that much, she should hire a housekeeper again. And yes, she could have hired a housekeeper again, but she'd never even found the energy to do that. Not after the last one, and her accident on the back steps, slipping on ice while taking out a bag of garbage. And even before that, her allergies, her rashes, and Holly's guilt at paying another woman, a poorer woman, a Spanish-speaking